What a homecoming. Thank you so very much for this wonderful reception of Pastor Emeritus and Professor across the street. But it is really special to be back for Homecoming Sunday. Homecoming Sunday at the Riverside Church is a family reunion, a reunion of the family of faith, of friends and co-workers, and there's always a special sense of excitement when we come back home. For an example, we get a chance to say to the two St. Christophers. We have two St. Christophers, Johnson and Cragen. Thank you for bringing, I don't know where you had to go across the United States to get our choir back after their summer vacation, but they are here and they are ready. Thank you, Double Chris, for this gathering. And I'd like to say, Reverend Phelps, thank you so very much for your warm introduction and for our friendship and for your leadership. If there's anybody who understands the rigor of the responsibility, I'm one of them, and I know, but thanks be to God for what you have done in your leadership here at this church. Thank you so very much. And to the staff members, the clergy staff and the lay staff, and to all of you who are a part of the choir for today, it's just good to be back. I'd like to make one special announcement, and that is that since I've been here, we have had a special occurrence in my family. I have a grandbaby who is called Hannah Rose. Can you believe that? Grandbaby. And I want to announce that just a few months ago, Betty and I reached that moment when we celebrated our 49th wedding anniversary. Stand up, Sister Betty. Stand up, dear one, over in her corner. Now, we're going to have many activities today, and as I recall, on Homecoming Sunday, one needs to give space because there are many different dimensions of our celebration. And so I want to bring a message to you today entitled, 3 Homecomings Our Soul's Desire. There is no place like home. Even if home was not perfect, there is still something that awakens memories of formative experiences, maybe pleasant, perhaps sometimes sad and disappointing. But home manages, in the course of our sojourn there, to deposit magic and meaning in our hearts and our minds. So homecomings are very special. We feel it, the atmosphere, expectation, and delight. But today, I want to speak to you about a different way of thinking about home. Yes, the places we grew up, had our early nurturance in our families, met our friends, and place where we got our discipline, and maybe places where we received our encouragement. But there's another kind of home that I want to talk to you about today. That is because home is an extraordinary metaphor for the journey of life. That is to say, as we live, inside of us, there is a sense in which we are reaching out for a different kind of home, a home that our very souls delight in. Thank you, Vera, for the picket fence, reminding us of home. I understand there's always a message in your floral arrangement, reminding us of home. But I want to talk about a home that the very soul just yearns for. And I want to say something about why that yearning is so strong. In fact, strong enough to help us as we continue our march towards home. This idea is rooted in these two texts you've heard today. The first text, read by Cecilia Lord, is one of those texts that if you listen to it, you wonder whether it should not have been edited. A text on Sunday morning that ends up saying, "O daughter Babylon, you devastator, happy shall be they who pay you back what you have done to us." And these words, maybe you ought to just cross them out. Happy shall they be who take your little ones and dash them against the wall. That's about as low as you could go. Why would they leave that in there? I think it's because a statement is being made first about home, and then what happens when one's soul does not feel at home. You know the story by the waters of Babylon. In 587, the people of Israel experienced the devastation that the Babylonians came and overpowered them and took them into captivity. And those who had been rounded up in Jerusalem had been taken down by the rivers of Babylon. In a moment, they might have spent some time singing some of the songs of lamentation that they had learned in the temple. And then the captives came up. The captives came. The captors asked them, look, we know your great tradition in Jerusalem and the mighty songs you sang in the temple. Why not, while we're resting here by the river on our way to captivity, why not sing us some of the songs of Zion? And the people, having already hung their harps on the willows, turned to these captors and said, "You must be kidding. How can we sing the Lord's songs in a strange land? Do you want us to show dishonor to our God? Do you want us to mimic out here in alien territory the songs that gave us hope and identity and power? No, we can't sing those songs in this alienated space." The psalmist has given us a sense of what it's like. When you're at home, you can sing. When you're at home, you can dance. When you're at home, you can play. When you're at home, you can dream. But if there is no home for the soul, then the text says there is a diminishment of humanity in folks who are without home. Whatever they might have become, to be without home is to suffer dehumanizing tendencies seeking to find expression. perhaps first with words, but maybe with action. Oh, that's a good message to start off with right there. People, if you don't feel at home, if you don't feel that you're in a place that cares about you, that wishes to bring the best gifts out, that would wish to help you move from potentiality to the active energy of the kinetic, if you are in a place that looks at you funny, maybe acts like you don't belong there, maybe you know that there's no investment in your actualizing your potential, the absence of home begins to whittle away on your humanity. And it's almost miraculous how homeless people still are able to maintain extraordinary humanity. But I guarantee you, if you live in a shelter like just last night, where an ice pick plunged amongst homeless men in a shelter, it's not quite right. This is a biblical message to us. People, folks were made for home. The womb of the mother was only a temporary home. And when the child comes forth, the child must have a place to be and to be happy and to be affirmed and to become all God ever meant that person to be. So much for the Old Testament lesson that helps us to see how important home is. But when we turn to the parable of the prodigal son, and those old-timers, Dr. Phelps, always remember that any time I preached on the prodigal son, I had to, in a sense, make a disclaimer. I always told them that this is such a popular parable that's been preached on so much that you almost have to explain why you're going to do it again. In fact, I tell the people that one pastor decided that he was going to preach a series, a 12-point series on the prodigal son. And after about the fifth in the series, one officer came up and told the pastor, "Pastor, sometimes I wish that boy had never come back home." But there is a reason why I'm risking talking about the prodigal son. Because on Homecoming Sunday, we are aware that Jesus has told this story basically about what our souls look for, what our souls are longing for. And I'm happy to share with you 3 things. There could be 4, 5, 6, but time prevents us from going all the way. But I want to mention 3 homes that I see in this parable of the prodigal son. You know how the prodigal son got all of his goods, went to a foreign land, and the famine came up, and he wasted his property in riotous living. And finally, when the famine came, he had to hire himself out, went to be with a farmer who gave him the job of feeding swine. And how this Jewish brother, for whom swine would be the contemptible thing even to work with, but the text says he got so low that he would fain have filled his belly with the pods that the swine were eating. And besides that, the text makes it real rough. Nobody gave him anything. Here he is, so low that he had to reach up to touch bottom, and nobody cared enough to respond to the extremity of his situation. The Bible really paints an awful picture. But then the text said, this boy realized that he was in a life and death situation. He saw death. Here I am, I perish with hunger. But then something came to him. And he was able, even as he watched out for the swine, to recognize, this is not me. This could never be. This must be an imaginary nightmare that's going on. Not me, down ready to eat with the... This is not me. There's another me. A me that God made with possibilities, with gifts to offer, with hopes and dreams that were undergirded by divine grace. There is in this ragged, dirty, please forgive me, stinking boy, there is a person of nobility inside me. And he had to make a choice. He says, that's my real home. That person with meaning and purpose, capacity to take responsibility for his journey of life. And he said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get up from here. I'm going to go to my father, and I'm going to tell him, Father, just make me a hired servant. I'm no longer worthy to be your son. I just want to work for you. I want to work with the workers. And that's where I saw the first home going, self. One of the homes we all want to go to is our better selves. Very few of us hang in that territory long, but we know it when we see it. We know what we would be like if we were fulfilling the dream of the Creator. We know what we would look like if we were, as the psalmist says, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. We understand what contributions we could make if we would yield ourselves to that person, to that self. Oh, I need not go on with this. Let me simply ask you now, do you see the two selves? The self manifested as a reflection of your struggles, your doubts, your anger, your burdens, your disaffections. But that's only outside. As Tournier would say, that's just the personage. But can you turn your eyes now and look at the person? Oh, what would you be like if you had finally come to the place that you had said, I'm choosing to be the home of the self, the better angel of my nature, dictating the pattern of my daily existence? Can you imagine? Oh, I do. Oh, I can remember just thinking some years ago, you know, the first day I came here, I talked about releasing a song. Well, from time to time, I ask myself, Jim, what would you be like if you could finally come to yourself? If you could finally get the courage to let your gifts come forth? If you could get the strength to ignore the flack on every side and just keep your eyes on the home of that self, what would you be like? Folks, y'all pray for me, because if I ever get to be that person, look out world, here comes Jim. But isn't it so for you? What would this nation be like? What would your community be like? What would your home be like if you could come to that self? But don't let me linger too long. There's another self for which we would desire a homecoming. Did you notice in the reading of the text that this fella said, how many hired servants of my father's have bread enough and to spare? That's reminding me of yet another homecoming. This young boy who had chosen to leave that family, to go out searching for himself, now turns and wants to be back with that community. And the image in his head of the workers at the place sitting around the table, not quarreling with each other, telling stories about their grandbabies, talking about the fish they caught, explaining how they grew some produce that would really win the prize. Not only that, but passing the biscuits. And I know what this is like. I grew up in a family of 8 children. And in my family, maybe that's why I sometimes have a tendency to indigestion. In my family, you had to eat fast because you didn't know when the biscuits would pass again. So you really, but the image she had was pass the potatoes, please. Pass the greens, if you will. I'm not going to mention fried chicken. There's an ethnic pattern related to that. But that's all right. But whatever they had on the table, people could pass it. In fact, let's be at table just for a brief moment. Will you say to the person next to you, pass the love, please? That's a home we want to go to. Don't you want to be in a home where love is passed from heart to heart and breast to breast? Don't you want to be in a home where when you are there, they look like, even if you know you are somewhat quaint, they just don't say it that way. They just say, oh, how unique he is. This boy wanted to go back to that home where he could be at that table with the servants. And let me mention this, because preachers often try to cover up the bad news in the situation. Home wasn't all that wonderful because his elder brother, that we're going to hear about just a little spell, had made it rough. Maybe that's why he left. No home is perfect. So let me go down the line. Don't you want your home to be a place where God's dream gets fulfilled for all the people in the house? That's your home. We've already been by yourself. But let me talk about your community. Don't you want to be in a community where you don't have to duck and hide? Don't you want to be in a community where you are not profiled either for what you have or for what you don't have? Don't you want to be in a community where even the least are considered worthy at least of subsistence necessities? Don't you want to be in a place that's not divided by race? Don't you want to be in a place that doesn't kick you to the curb because you are gay? Don't you want to be in a place where even if you are rich, people still respect you for who you are rather than for what you have? Oh, for a community where love is the norm. That community, that boy wanted to go to that kind of community. But let me give you a third one now. What is the third one? He said, I'm going to say to my father, my parent, I'm not worthy. But apparently, your love never included me on the basis of the test that I passed. Your love never seemed to be based on how good I was. It was love that kept coming. Whether I was good or whether I was bad, I want to be with that person, that father. And so he made his journey back home. He was first down, but something picked him up. I want to share with you the insight that just thrills me upon discovering it. Why did he find the energy to get up? And I say this because I assume that on Homecoming Sunday, there's somebody who needs to get up. I'm assuming that there's somebody who already back in this place, but still you see the home of the self, the home of the community, the home, and I missed the church community, the nation, the world. We want to get back. What gives you the energy to get up? I think I got a formula. First, it is that built-in longing inside of yourself that is very difficult to anesthetize. Whatever your condition and whoever you are today, you want that better self. You want that loving community. You want that forgiving and empowering God. But that's just one half of what gets you up. The longing for it is half. But having studied over the summer a little bit about quantum physics, I am fascinated by the fact that what gets you up is not just what's inside of yourself. What gets you up is that which is even outside of yourself, but that it nevertheless has a magnetic attraction to you. In other words, and this gets me excited, while you are longing for home, home is reaching out to you. Let me tell you, if you feel something strange when you sit in church, it could be that other self is reaching out to you. It's not just you're reaching for the self. Has anybody ever experienced the other self say, do you ever, by the way, don't be embarrassed. Do you ever talk to yourself? Do you ever say, look, get yourself together. Don't you know you are sub-optimizing your opportunity in life? Do you ever talk to yourself like that? The other self outside is reaching for us while we are reaching for that. And community reaches for us. There is no human being for whom cells just run around by themselves. The body is always trying to get the cells to be related and to be differentiated and to work out for the good of the whole. Community is reaching out. People really don't like lone rangers who care for no one, who shares with no one. No. Community is reaching out to you, and Lord knows God is reaching out. That's why the whole trilogy was told. Jesus tells the story first about a person who had 100 sheep and one was lost, and then he tells the story about how that person goes, the shepherd, walking, leaving the 99 to demonstrate extraordinary power, leaving the 99, going out to get that one that was lost. And as if they didn't get it, a lady with silver coins, and one got lost. She sweeps the house, lights the house, and goes looking for that one. And in the case of the boy, it's the same. God, who made us, is reaching out to each and every one of us. And love in God is beyond consideration of our virtues or our vices. God reaches out because we came forth from God, and the God that made us is always seeking to be fuller, in a sense, by a consenting relationship with that which was made. My God is looking for us. Well, that's really what I wanted to talk about, except I've made a change since I was here. I've made a change because I was doing retail business when I was at Riverside, but after having retired, I went into wholesale business, which means that my concern is not usually simply about individuals coming to the self or coming to community or coming to God. I think that a nation needs to come to God. A nation needs to come to community. A nation needs to come to self. So let me close talking to America. Because America, so far as I can tell, there are better angels of our nature that are in exile these days. There's a part of America that has lost it. So here's what I want to say to America. America, as I talk at Riverside on Homecoming Sunday, I want to remind you that really, inside